Welcome to Start Here, Go Everywhere. I am Linda Moyo, an alumna of Jobs for America's Graduates. On this podcast, we bring you incredible guests from all walks of life, offering the skills to educate, inspire, and challenge you to succeed in both school, on the job skills, and in personal life, leading to productive and rewarding careers. Welcome, everyone. My name is Linda Moyo, your host, and today we have an extremely special specialist, Paige Parker from South Salina, Kansas. Welcome, Paige. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, Linda?
I am so excited to talk with you today and get to hear your story because you actually started out as a JAG student and now you're a JAG specialist. So tell me about your journey starting out in JAG as a student.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me on this podcast. It's an amazing opportunity and I appreciate it.
Of course.
But my JAG story is kind of unique because my specialist was actually a para in a special needs class that I was working with. And then my senior year, she switched jobs, got into JAG, and she was like, Paige, you're coming in my class no matter what. And so I was actually a student that was on truancy all 4 years of high school, had a lot of family death, so I didn't have the best mental health.
Yeah.
And so Miss Gates, my specialist, she was like, come on, I can't do this alone, so I need you with me. And so I just got in her class, and then 5 years down the road, getting ready to graduate college, and Miss Gates called me in April because Salina South is actually cutting the program, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Yeah, due to some budget things. So last spring, she called me in April because they got rid of the program and then they got COVID funding. So she was like, Paige, what are you doing the rest of your life? I was like, well, Melissa, it's noon and I'm in bed. What are you doing? She's like, I got the perfect opportunity for you. And then she's like, do you want to be the JAG specialist at South? I was like, might as well. I'm graduating in May. Don't have really any idea of what I want to do. And so it kind of fell in my lap. And it's something that I couldn't say no to, especially because my specialist, she said, there's nobody that I trust more with my students other than you.
Wow.
And hearing her say that, it was like, oh, this means a lot to her. And she actually has been a saving grace for my family for the longest time. So back in 2012, I had a brother in high school and he was failing most of his classes. He was taking sophomore classes as a senior and Miss Gates was still a para, and my brother was the first ever at-risk kid that she ever worked with and got him to graduate and stuff. So she's kind of just been in our family, and you can't say no to Miss Gates. You can't.
It sounds like Miss Gates. Yeah, it sounds like she's been, a powerful person in your life and played a special role, especially during your high school career and your brother's, it sounds like. So tell me about your JAG experience when you did join for that 1 year, your senior year.
I didn't feel like I belonged, in high school. I played sports, so I was considered popular because of that. But I didn't have any, friends that I could trust.
Yeah.
But when I was in JAG, it was a place where you could be your true, authentic self, and there was no judgment because other people were feeling the same way that I was feeling. Yeah. And so, to me, JAG ended up being a family. I still actually talk to some of my JAG classmates, and it just... knowing that I had that safe place in the building to go whenever, I was having a bad day, that meant the world to me than any other thing because I knew that I have a safe space and within these four walls. Well, more walls, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course. So you keep talking about, a safe space, family. So what in particular about the JAG family made it feel safe for you?
I think it's just understanding that we all have a hard background and that we all come from different walks of life. And then this is the one place that we can bring that all together and form a connection, have those hard conversations that we wouldn't be able to have before. Because with Miss Gates and her class, she taught us how to advocate for ourselves. And so like advocating in your class, talking to your teachers and stuff like that. And I actually carried that on to me and my softball career in college.
Wow.
Learning how to advocate for myself and knowing that I can create a safe space if I'm willing to create it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's incredible. So what has been the biggest lesson for you in, the process of learning how to advocate for yourself? What did that result in for yourself?
I think learning to be true to myself, no matter if it disappoints other people around me. As long as I'm not disappointing myself, then I should be okay. And like advocate, I was hurt a lot in college. I battled some injuries because I was a softball catcher. Yeah. And that comes with the job in softball. So just knowing that I know what my truth is and sticking to that truth, no matter what, if people don't believe me, and just, you know your worth and you know your truth. So just stick to that.
Yeah. As a former JAG student myself, I totally agree with you that, JAG is that place where you feel safe and you almost gain a voice where you feel like you can speak up for yourself, and you gain so many other skills. So you mentioned that right after you graduated from JAG, you went to college. How easy or hard was that process for you?
I think JAG definitely made that process easier because my brothers didn't go to college, so I was the first sibling to go. I mean, my mom went back to college when she was 35, so she kind of helped me with that process. But just knowing kind of what I want as a person, that's kind of how I picked up the school that I went to. And then knowing that I always had that support from Ms. Gates, because there's the 12-month follow-up. And I always knew no matter what was going on in college, I always had that safe person that I could talk to authentically, raw, and get pretty good feedback. And so I think still being in contact with her helped tremendously because I went 5 hours away from home. So I went to another state. And so I didn't really have anybody, but knowing that I always had that person having my back no matter what helped a lot.
For sure. And it's incredible, not a lot of teachers do this after their kids graduate. That's what makes specialists so special, because they truly care about you. And a 12-month follow-up can really make the difference, especially during such a huge transition, whether you're going straight to college or the workforce. So I'm glad that your specialist was that rock for you as you transitioned.
Yeah.
Now tell me about your transition from going to college and then thinking about what am I going to do after I graduate? Because even though JAG gives us the skills, to learn what to do afterwards, you still get doubt and fear, and, you get into the real world. And so tell me about your experience.
Well, it's been a rocky one, to say the least. Because since I struggled with mental health in high school, that kind of still followed me throughout college and stuff. And I think I was definitely panicking because I was like, I don't know what I want to do. My degree's in health and wellness, but do I want to do that the rest of my life? And so there was definitely a lot of doubt and a lot of panic. But as soon as Miss Gates called me, it was like, this opportunity is here for a reason. I'm going to grow from it. I'm going to learn from it. And so it was just, like I said, it just fell in my lap. In April, a month before I was supposed to graduate, had the job interview in January, in June. So it was just, the world just worked out that way for me. And so I didn't really have to stress too much or anything like that. And I knew with my background in softball and stuff that I've always wanted to coach. So I knew that I kind of wanted to go this way. I actually, for the longest time, wanted to be a special needs teacher. From the time I was 9 years old till I came to college, I was like, man, I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to have to make lesson plans. I don't want to do that. But here I am.
Here
so
you are.
It worked out how it was supposed to work.
So tell me about that experience, fresh out of college, and now you're a teacher making the lesson plans and talking to students and trying to guide them through their, high school career.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has that experience been?
It's been a learning curve. And honestly, personally, I have matured so much just as a person being in this role, because I'm now in charge of 60 students and their well-being and being their person. So what I learned with my students is that most of them don't hit the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So like a lot of them don't have a safe place to sleep. They don't eat. They don't have a, shelter. And so I've focused really hard on meeting my students where they're at and mentally, because I'm a big mental health advocate. If you don't know what's going on up in here, then you're not going to be able to know what to do in your life. So that's something that we've been really focusing on, is knowing that you have feelings and being okay that you have those feelings. And then I can get into more of the JAG stuff, because now they're ready to learn.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like meeting the students where they're at has been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, I love how you brought up the mental health part, because that is so huge and we often neglect that. And so as a new specialist, how do you take care of yourself after, you have to take care of these 60 JAG students? How do you make sure that you're okay?
I set boundaries up for myself. If it's 3:00 is when I'm allowed to clock out. So once 3:00 hits, I try to just get work out of my mind and find little things that make me happy. Or like during the day, like during my plan period, like now I have puzzles in my office that just do like little mindful activities. I journal every day to kind of just get all these thoughts out onto paper, because that helps a lot. If there's a stressful situation in the classroom or something, I focus on my breathing, because your breathing focuses on your central nervous system and your vagus nerve and all of that. And once you're able to calm that down, the rest of your body will calm down. Your nerves, your emotions won't be as high. And so just being able to recognize that within myself and knowing my own triggers. Because I have generalized anxiety disorder. And so knowing what little things that might set me off and trying to eliminate those as much as possible helps a lot. So just like doing little things during the day, like mindfulness, helps me in the long run, because then I'm just not like, oh my God, I need to get this done. I need to get that done. And being able to just to like cut it off if need to be.
Definitely. So I'm curious, along the lines of, talking about anxiety and mental health, what is a lesson that you have done with your JAG students that has been the most impactful in that arena?
Oh man. I talk to my students a lot. We did one big project at the beginning. I read a book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle over the summer.
Yes.
And like that book hit home with me. And so I was thinking like the cheetah run that she talked about, and how like you're put in these cages and you can break free from the cages if you're willing to do so. And so an activity that we did at the beginning of the year was they had to imagine themselves as the cheetah. What kind of cages has someone put you in? Like you're not smart enough to do that, or you're not good enough, that type of thing. And so what we did was flipping that into a more positive thing. So instead of saying I am lazy, you can say like, I am worthy to get my work done when I have the energy to do so. Or you need to love this person, or so and so and so. Switch it to I will love and appreciate whoever that I love. It doesn't matter to these other people, as long as it's true to myself. And I think just reminding my students, because I tell them every day, like, you're a human being. You're going to have feelings. You're going to have emotions. It doesn't make you any less of a person for doing that. And so just reminding them and letting them know that you're going to have bad days, but it's about what you do about those bad days for the next day. And I'm big on having emotions, but don't let those emotions consume you. Because once you let them consume you, then that's when they become a bigger issue. And that's when you feel like you're out of control.
Exactly. So
but honestly, all praise to my therapist. So
yes. So talk to me about that, because there's also shame around, going to therapy. Are your students comfortable? Are you able to share with them that you yourself go to a therapist? And if they
Yes.
also want to, they can?
Yeah, I am so big on sharing my experiences with my students because that's all I can talk from is my experiences.
Yeah.
And so if I'm feeling irritable a day or so, I'm going to be like, all right, guys, like my anxiety is very high today. I'm going to need you guys to like mellow out a little bit. Or if I tell them, if I'm just upfront, like I'm not having a good day today, we're going to have a mental health day. And they love it. They would rather us teachers be upfront without how we're feeling instead of, lashing out on them for the reasons that we're feeling. Because I know a lot of my students, they run into the issue of their teachers lashing out on, lashing out at them. And I think it's probably because like a lot of teachers feel a lot of pressure, but they don't talk about it with the other students. So I always tell my students, I'm like, when I talk to you about this, it's talking from my experience.
Yeah.
So I've talked about, death in the family that really affected me, my family dynamic, my own mental health, and just like letting them know that they matter. Like we have posters all over our classroom just saying that you matter, because you do. No matter if you're going through some issues, you matter no matter what. And just reminding them that helps a lot.
I love that. That's one thing that I wish more teachers would do, just be upfront with their students and say, hey, I'm human too. I experience these feelings. I go through things as well. And that's how students learn, when, the teachers can be open and upfront with them. So I acknowledge you for doing that, because that's not an easy step. And I'm sure your students really appreciate that. Of course. So I want to know, from your 60 JAG students, what is the thing that you think they need the most that you're able to give them?
Just that safe space like I was talking about. My students know that if I'm in the building, they can find me anywhere I'm at and they can have a conversation with me if they need to have a conversation. I have students that don't even have my class that day, or they'll just come in and just have 30 minutes of mental health and just kind of chill by themselves and do what they need to do to kind of reboost themselves. I actually have my students fill out a daily check-in every day. So have you ever heard of the emotional wheel?
I think I have, where you first start out with a broader emotional word, and then it keeps getting, more specific.
Yeah. So I do that with my students. So I'll pick, stuff from anger, sadness, happy, love, and then kind of start branching out on those, just so that way the students are able to kind of recognize their own feelings and emotions. Because if they're anything like I was in high school, I had no idea what was going up in my brain. And I had no way to express that. I had no way of registering it. And so with my daily check-in, they have like a gift that goes next to it, so they kind of understand what the feeling is. And then I'll ask them if they've eaten, if they've slept, or anything like that. Because if they haven't eaten or slept, then I should expect some type of behavior from them.
Of course.
And so just knowing that has helped, and knowing that the students can have any type of conversation with me has helped too. And knowing that we're going to have those hard conversations, and that the hard conversations have to be there to gain trust or respect with each other. And so my students know that, and I think that has been the world of difference for them, honestly.
Yeah, and like you said at the beginning, that then opens up the safe space environment to actually begin and start to learn. So what are some of the lessons that you are currently teaching to your students right now?
Well, we've kind of been working on our career development conference, but we have been focusing on mental health through this whole year. That's something that I'm very passionate about, because there has been a silent cry for help kind of within the student body, and I don't think any of the teachers know what to do or how to help that. And so that's why I started my daily check-ins, is so that way that kind of helps, my students too. And just knowing that they have a background.
Yeah, of course.
Has helped.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've just been focusing on our career development conference and stuff like that. So.
And how has that been going? I know I have a student that I mentor who is currently a sophomore at the Newton High School in Kansas. And he called me yesterday and he was like, Linda, I'm doing my speech and I don't know what to do. Am I sharing too much? Am I not sharing too much? Like, how do I know what my JAG story is? So I'm curious to hear what some of your students are, succeeding and excited for.
I have a few students that are like, they live for this stuff, like they're meant for it. But it's actually been kind of challenging because I have a lot of students out with COVID. About more than half my roster is out with COVID right now. So it's kind of just, it's been a little challenging kind of navigating, the placement of other people. My students are just, they're like, we got to beat Central. That's what they want to do. Rival high schools. That's their focus right now, is just beating the other high school. But like just getting all the students to participate, that's, some students might have a fear of speaking, has bad anxiety. And so just navigating and not trying to push them too hard, because if they push, then they're just going to disassociate. And that's something that I don't want.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that, being a JAG student and having to plan for all the career development, the leadership development conferences, it can be a lot of stress. But like you said, when you just, help them step by step, if they can get out of that comfort zone, incredible things can only happen from there. So that's good. You said that a lot of your students are currently, gone due to COVID, and then some are still in your classroom. How do you organize all of that and still show up for the ones that are at home and also for your current students in the classroom?
I just send them emails, if they actually they'll still get the whole daily check-in thing, so they can still do the daily check-ins while they're at home. And I'll comment on those check-ins, so be like, hey, how are you feeling today? And just checking in. They don't need to worry about schoolwork right now. We'll worry about that when they come back. So I just remind them that, work on what you can work on, and then we'll get you caught up when you get back. And so that has helped a lot. And just like our Google Classroom, I can just post in there whenever I need to, and the students can reply back if, that they have something going on. And at the end of my daily check-in, there's always a question, is there anything that you need to tell me? And so they'll tell me if, they're not feeling too well and stuff like that. And that kind of helps keep it in line. Yeah,
of course. So what is one thing compared to when you were a student, now that you're a specialist, what's one thing that you have learned that you never knew, or, it was so out there for you that you now have gained?
I've learned so much. I would say time management is definitely different being a teacher.
Tell me about that.
Basically, meeting my classes where they're at. And a class might be further ahead than another class. And so, knowing that, and I actually have a little planner that I, try to keep up with, where the class is at, this class is here. And then just meeting all the deadlines. I like to break everything down in small pieces because it's more tangible for me if I do that.
Yeah. And
so just taking a task one at a time and even in and out to where I still have time for another task if I, run out of time for another one. And softball actually has helped a lot with my time management.
Yeah.
Because our days were very scheduled, and knowing that I had to be at a place at a certain time and just sticking to that. And if I stick to that, we're good. And so that's helped a lot.
That's good. So what would be your one piece of advice for all the JAG students everywhere about time management? Because, most likely as a middle school, more towards high school, that's when you're doing after school sports. You have a club to go to. Some of them have work, and then managing the family time and friends. It can be a lot on them. So what kind of advice would you give to them about their time management?
I would say don't stress, because there's no point in stressing over something twice. There's no point in stressing over something that hasn't happened yet. And just you are the driver, you are the creator of your world. You take it as best as you can, and know that you can say no. Know that you can say no to something that you don't actually want to do, but you feel bad. You can say no and be advocate for yourself, and just know that time is something that you can never get back, but you can always do something with that time.
Ooh.
And so just, my dad hit me with that one time. Because he's a diesel instructor over at Salina Tech, and so he came and guest spoke with students one time. He was like, employers don't care if you break a part, because that's a part that you can fix. What they care about is your time, because that's something that they can never get back, but you're getting paid for that. And so just knowing that, and knowing that you can control anything that you want if you really wanted to.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. Before we get going, I want to acknowledge you for, being this JAG student who was struggling, whether that was with family stuff and school stuff, and having an incredible specialist who was helping you and guiding you in life, to then, going to college and continuing to play softball. And then after you graduate, coming back to your high school to be the JAG specialist. That's an incredible story. And what you teach your students about being an advocate for themselves and, saying no and learning about their own mental health and showing up for that in their own lives. That's something that's extremely powerful. So I acknowledge you for that. And thank you for continuing to do that great work. And before we go,
thank you.
We are going to play a little game where I will ask you 3 questions, and you can answer this in a couple of sentences. The first question is, if you could have dinner with 2 people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Ooh, that is so hard. Probably my grandpa Chuck that passed away in 2011. Just because he was funny at dinner, he barely had any teeth. It was funny watching him. He's just a goofy guy.
Yeah.
Probably Erin Miller. She was a softball player at the University of Oklahoma, and I grew up watching her, and I actually watched her win a national championship.
Wow.
But she's kind of turned into an influencer now about mental health and stuff, and so I would just love to pick her brain about mental health and her own struggles and what she did to persevere and stuff.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that. Your grandpa, and what's her last name? Erin
Miller.
Erin Miller.
Oh, I guess she got married now.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's different now, but I don't know what it is.
That's okay. So your second question is, what makes you feel inspired, happy, or hopeful in life? Or even currently, because that always changes.
Knowing that it gets better, and knowing that in order to see the light, you got to be in the dark for a little bit. And if you really push through, you're going to see that light eventually. And actually during my job interview for JAG, they're like, what's your greatest achievement? I was like, waking up every day, because there was a point in my life where I didn't think that was going to be possible.
Yeah.
So that's an accomplishment. Being able to breathe, being able to, be alive.
That's a beautiful answer. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
And your last question is, what is your definition of success?
My personal definition?
Yes.
Oh, man. I would say my definition of success is doing things in life where you are genuinely happy. And I don't think it should be measured on the amount of things you can achieve. I think it should be measured on, are you happy doing it? Because so many of us are not happy, but we want to beat the race. We want to be the first ones to get something done. But are you really successful if you're not happy while you do it?
That's a good one.
So I would say that's my definition.
Well, Paige, again, thank you for taking the time out of your day and your planning hour to meet with me and just have this incredible conversation. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and I appreciate you, Linda. I mean, I don't know your story, but you were in JAG, so I know that you have one, and I appreciate you coming back to JAG as well, because it's such a great organization, and we reach so many people, and we don't even realize it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest things, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at JAG Students. Thanks again, and see you next time.